an attendee who has asked to record the meeting. So as chair, I am notifying all other attendees that this meeting is being recorded. And we will get started. So the first item on our agenda, I'm not sure why it said slides, are the district goals for 26-27.
All right, if this will cooperate, I will pull them up. All right, here we go. So I do have some slides that we just uploaded. I'm gonna try to talk through this in a way that makes sense. It's not super linear, right? And they updated my operating system because the OWL wasn't working. And now I'm lost in my operating system. So give me 1 second. Liz can't see.
I could just come sit next to you.
I think we're good.
Okay.
But now you can't see them, but I can see them. There we go. That's better. Okay. So, Paul, can you see this? Okay, the screen, the slide, or does it need to be bigger?
You're not in slideshow presentation mode, so it's
because I was going to leave it this
cut
way.
off.
Okay, but this way. Is that better?
You're still cutting off the lower right-hand corner of this thing. You
There
are.
you go.
Okay.
That work?
Mostly.
Okay.
Shrink it a little more.
Yeah, it's weird. Why is it all
find it like that?
No, I want you to be able to see it. It's good. Okay, you're gonna be able to see this. I can see them.
Okay.
I will stop sharing so that you can see them when I'm done. Okay, so my thinking has been around goals, goal development timelines. Is there a way for us to have one district goal cycle that is also the goal cycle for my evaluation? Because right now we have two. So there's the superintendent evaluation goal cycle, which starts in January. We approve those goals at that point. Nothing really happens in the middle. We do outcomes, and then I'm evaluated on those goals. We have the district goals cycle that is like offset by 6 months. So for that one, we do the goal development in spring, and then we don't really do a check-in on it, which I would like to incorporate. Last year, we did sort of a status update, which I have for you today on the 25-26 goals. And right now, they inform one another and they're aligned to one another, but they're not the same goal. And there'd be just less goal writing if we align these. And frankly, they might as well be the same because what I'm working on is what we've set for the district goals. So right now, I've got a couple things in here. The first would be the evaluation goals from the district goals for you all to evaluate me on next year, and a status update on the progress towards these. All of that is in your materials. So what I did here was from the district goals, which we did sort of one for each of the 4 priorities, and then 3 actions beneath each of the 4 priorities that were aligned with that goal. I picked one of the action sets from the 3 for each goal. So for the student learning goal, we will improve outcomes for all students and focal groups by implementing a revised DCAP MTSS, providing professional learning to all educators, including the role of MTSS in intervention and roles within the framework. So that was one of the goals. That was one of the action steps for the goals for this year. I picked that as the student learning. And then for professional learning, I picked the action step focused on implementing terms of bargaining agreements for more supportive onboarding and ongoing professional learning. For the district improvement goal, I picked from priority 3, the one that focuses on operational accountability and establishing some role redundancies and connections between finance, HR, and payroll. For goal number 2 from priority 4, I chose the one that was focused on revision of rental formulas for ACE and after school, establishment of expectations around fees, and efforts to reduce school wait lists. So like a explicit focus on after school programming, because I'd really like to do a review of whether we go out for an RFP or consolidate under AASP, and I have not dedicated the time to that, but now that Chris is here, I feel like we could do that. So that's what I have for 25, 26, and you would evaluate me on that under the new cycle, which I'll explain in a minute, in November, December of 2026. So these would be the goals you would evaluate me on. So I just want to walk through that cycle again. So the current cycle is that in January, I develop new goals from the current school year's goals. So I'm usually developing my superintendent goals like halfway through the year that we're in, which is a little awkward timing wise. I do it then because in November, December, you all evaluate me. So after that, then we do my goals, but we're halfway through the year on which I will be evaluated at the time that I'm making the goals. In May and June right now, we do the district goal development with cabinet and leadership. We report out on the goals for that year. Last year was the first time we did that. But we haven't had like a consistent report out schedule. And then in the summer, we do the PD plan and schedule, finalize schedules, summer curriculum work to get ready for the new school year. In October, November, we do the outcomes report. So there's kind of that accelerated goal and report cycle. And then there's the evaluation in November, December. And that there's sort of 2 cycles embedded in that one. So what I would propose, this is actually the proposed cycle. So I'm going to fix that. What I would propose is this, which would be doing a few things that I'll outline in a second. In February or March, which is where we're at now, we do a discussion of priorities for goal development for the following school year. So as a CIAA subcommittee, as a school committee, we actually have an earlier conversation about what we hope to see happen in the school year that's coming. We do a report out around that time on progress on goals for the current year. So some sort of mid-year progress report on where we are for the goals we're in the middle of doing. Then in April, we'd love to do the goal development and get those voted by the committee, so that we can start the development of a PD plan and schedule. Right now, we do those in the opposite order. We start working on PD plan, summer plans, prior to setting goals for the following school year. That's the wrong order to do things in. We need to set the goals first. So we'd like to do that in April, then dig into things like PD plan schedules, summer curriculum work. The district goals would become the superintendent goals. So when we do the goals, I could indicate like this one would be the superintendent goal, this one would be, and those would be the ones you'd evaluate me on. In October, November, then the outcomes report, the SQPs, we could do a report out on district goals at the same time that we're doing the outcomes report. And we've gone through a whole cycle, whole year with those goals at that point. And then you do the evaluation after we do the outcomes report. So you're evaluating on a full year's work with outcomes when you do the superintendent evaluation. So what I think are the benefits here is that there's one cycle instead of 2 separate. The outcomes reporting is serving to assess both my performance and the district's progress towards the district goals, which I think it does now. It's just not as explicit because there are 2 separate sets of goals. The goals get developed in the right order before planning gets conducted for the next year. We do a mid-year check-in on the district goals, incorporate it in, and then the evaluation timing doesn't really change. There are a couple considerations. We're setting district goals earlier, so that means before any outcomes are available in the prior year, but we do that now. Like we set the goals before we have outcomes. So we're already doing that to some extent. We'd also be setting the district goals earlier, so we should be ready to adjust. It's very possible that like something comes up in May and we need to incorporate it and say, we're going to deprioritize this and prioritize that. So those are just a couple of things to be thinking about. We have gotten started on goals for next year. we've started the development process for 26, 27. We're doing a survey and having conversations with teachers and administrators. I talked with my advisory committee yesterday about this. Some of the topics they're interested in are around multi-tiered supports, differentiation, use of student work and data to inform planning, ways to inclusively expand deeper learning. Those are sort of the top 3 topics at the moment. If we had that proposed cycle accepted, we would then go ahead and start drafting goals for 26, 27 for you all to review. We would finalize superintendent goals based on the goals that we're currently working on for 25, 26. And then I had just a little more data about, like, when in the survey we sent out, we asked about challenges. We asked what students need us to focus on. These were the answers that the different constituents we've surveyed answered. We could expand that survey out a little further, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of a highlight of some of what we're thinking for next year for discussion. So my questions today are, and I'll stop sharing so y'all can see each other. Stop mirroring. Okay. Does that cycle work? Do you have any thoughts about goals for 26, 27? And would you like us to go ahead and start drafting those on this timeline? And are there any adjustments you'd want to make to determination of which of the district goals become the evaluation goals? I think this is aligned with some of what we talked about, but we can adjust it. Sorry.
Thought, comment?
What does SQP stand for?
School quality plans.
Oh,
The
Mhm.
school.
the improvement plans? Yeah.
Paul, did you have thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm thinking it makes sense to go and consolidate this, and given that the superintendent evaluation comes after, the one thing that really drove the 2 different goals historically is that we waited to see the MCAS scores before we did any evaluation of superintendent, because the data that DESE generates, which is important for us, doesn't show up until September, October. This seems to be a reasonable fusion of this. I don't like spending a lot of time developing a couple of sets of goals and a couple of sets of standards. I want this to be simplified. And this seems to be a reasonable way to set it up. I'm not sure how we get to the goals we evaluate the superintendent on within the context of the evaluation document or the tool. I think this might give us an opportunity to reassess the tool, and also give us the opportunity to go to a 2-year evaluation cycle on the superintendent. So I'm happy to go and have further discussions and move forward on this.
I am okay with a 1-year evaluation on this cycle because it lines everything up and because we have to do district goals once a year anyway. I think honestly, if we did, I'm all for the 2-year cycle, but if we did 2 years, then there's the awkwardness of needing goals that will work for 2 years when we're doing 1-year cycles for the district goals. So then we're like stuck back in a 2 years. Like
okay, I see your point. I see your point there.
Doing.
Yeah, I see your point there.
If the lineup works, then this does the work that I was asking the 2-year cycle work to do.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have the document open, but my one question is, when would we get a report on the district goals?
So, right, so in the materials for today and what I sent, there is a report out on the ones we're working on right now with a current status, progress, and then action steps taken so far. What I would do then is in the fall, when we do the outcomes report, I would build into the outcomes report. We would like reframe that to talk about outcomes, but also talk about the district goals and progress towards other goals from the prior year. So that outcomes reporting becomes outcomes reporting on student outcomes and all of the other work we said we were going to do the prior year, which I like because things like after school, for example, is tied to some of our work around chronic absenteeism, is tied to some of our work around like some of the strategies we do in the goals are in an attempt to improve other accountability measures. So they naturally kind of fit together. It's better. I would prefer to do the report out on goals with the outcomes report than to do it like in June as we're wrapping up the school year, because we technically aren't done yet. Like we haven't done the end of year report. We haven't finalized all of the parts and pieces of the student's year until it's summer. So, and we're kind of cramming it in right now, and we haven't, because we're cramming things in June, we haven't done a very thorough report out on that year's goals consistently since I've been here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll have to look at it and I can give you some more feedback, but I don't want the overlap to be too long, right? So we set the new goals in April or May. You start working on them, July 1st. And then we don't hear about them until the following November. That's probably too long.
No, because there's a so in that cycle, there's
we have the mid review, yes, but we don't hear the completion or the full analysis of what we did. It ends at June 30th, and then we don't hear until November, which may be too long. I'll have to look at it and give you some feedback. Thanks.
Yeah.
So, Liz Exton, what is the ask for this subcommittee right now? Because I'm also aware that the subcommittee expires at the end of the month, and we may reshuffle. So anything we're doing now has to be put out for the last meeting of the year, which is the next meeting.
Week. Yeah. So I guess that's part of the challenge here is that if we want to propose this cycle, we need to recommend this. We would need to recommend this to the full committee next week. Which I'm not sure we've had enough time, hearing Len have feedback. I also am not sure I fully understand the process. I also think that one of the charges, or at least the charge that I understood from the full committee to us was the reporting document. So I had added the rubric, not the rubric, the end of cycle summative evaluation report, just as a reference. But Liz, you've set an example of how there's a professional practice goal, a student learning goal, and the district improve. So I'm not sure that this tool needs to change. You did say a different evaluation room.
No, I built the goals. So there are goals in the one meeting that are taken from this year's district goals that are same format as we've used. The way you all evaluate me, that rubric, if you want to make changes to that, that's just Desi's tool. Like we can do that. You can do that. I don't use it besides to read your feedback. I think that the committee did express some desire to see that revised, but I'm not sure what's clunky about it. So, because I don't fill it out. you know, from me, we had talked about aligning the goals for the district with the goals for evaluation. I think that makes sense because honestly, they're pretty aligned already, and I'm doing multiple processes that trip over each other right now. So that was what I thought through for today.
Yeah, so Paul and Lynn, do you have concerns about the report form that? I don't know if that came from Jeff having to feel like he had to organize it as chair. And so I don't know if there's a way to make this clearer to the chair that when it's due and when, like, if we as a subcommittee need to set a document with dates, like the committee will send their report to this chair by this date,
There'll be a new chair and a new committee in 3
Right.
weeks. So I think that basically what we can do right now is just make a report of progress. And the vote for the school committee would be to accept the report and take a temperature as to whether or not we want the new subcommittee to continue in this direction.
Okay.
Mhm.
As 3 members of the committee right now that will all be on the full committee after April or after March, are there thoughts or feedback that you have about the tool that we should give to the rest of the committee?
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't really like the tool, but I think who's going to invest in developing a new one is sort of the question, right? And so I think that's for the new subcommittee to think if that's something they want to spend their time on or not. I don't think it's a priority to me. It's not a great tool, but it's doable, so it's workable.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it lines up with my like everything that I do professionally, so it makes sense to me too. So I don't have a huge interest in making changes. I also worry it will get lost. Like it would somehow have to become policy that this is our document, whereas this is DESE, like this is DESE's, they give it to us.
Yeah, my hesitation to changing it would be that inadvertently you head in a direction that is not the way superintendents are evaluated throughout the state, not aligned with DESE's rubric, not aligned with DESE's process. I think it's more of a like, I think the concern is more that it's clunky, but I wouldn't want the content to substantively shift.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, in terms of reporting, we have to go and report back to the state aligned to what they're requiring. It's just that in many ways, the formatting of this thing is so counterintuitive that you're doing something down here on page 5 and then cutting and putting it back to page 2 and I don't know that I would be messing with the content per se, but I certainly want to go and see if we couldn't improve the readability and flow of what we're doing.
And you could put it in a form, which would generate a spreadsheet, which would make it a lot easier for the chair to aggregate.
Yeah, that too.
And I could have one of them work on that.
I know that when I was evaluating teachers, I put the whole thing in a FileMaker document, and so I was able to populate in the fields and build a subsequent summary coming out of that, so I could look at that as I was compiling the final components.
And they could put the goals right in the
Correct.
like they would
Correct.
put the text right into it. Yeah.
That would be a lot easier to like organize for the chair.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if the committee was interested in that, like us taking the content that's there and moving it into a form that's easier to fill out
Yep.
is simple.
That's sort of what I did when I was chair, to go and aggregate it. But
I mean, that's, yeah, I guess that's like where I get a little like stuck is then it's like almost each chair has their own system or has adjusted it. And so it's like, how does it become
Liz and I
the
are,
school committee's
working on
form
that.
as opposed to the chair's
yeah,
form?
well, I had to go and bring it back into the form. So I was just using it as my tool to see what was happening and aggregating, not aggravating, before pasting it back into the summary document.
I mean, I think that the clunkiness of the chair every year has been something Liz and I have talked about at length. What we'd like to do after the election is sort of a year kickoff with the new chair, make a plan for presentations that we can share out with the committee in the spring. Go through processes that we've established and iterated and shift, like over the last several years, we've moved kind of how we plan out the presentations for meetings. Share that with the new chair. Like if we want to have a retreat in the summer, make a plan for that earlier than later because people's schedules are moving around. So like Liz and I are trying to work on getting organized so that some of these things stick and don't become like
Right.
things that shift every time there's somebody new in the role, at the same time recognizing that you all have different ways you operate, and so we have to adapt to that.
That's what that's what I was gonna say, like the chair does have to have some.
It's their meeting, like it's not, so, and we recognize that at the same time, like sometimes it's helpful to walk in and have something to work with and tweak. And we haven't been great about that, about sort of like setting you up for organization. And
okay, so it sounds like we could bring a report recommending that Liz Diggins creates a form based on the DESI's superintendent evaluation form, such that it's more streamlined for committee members to fill in the information. And then the chair would have that information. So it sounds like that is sort of an actionable step that we as a subcommittee can recommend now that we can talk about next week. But yeah, it sounds like the specific cycle needs to be. So
what can I ask what the questions are? Because we have a half hour.
Yeah.
If I can clear anything up.
Well, but because the other piece to this is we finished your previous cycle and we don't have new
Right,
goals.
I don't have goals right now. So if I need to make a separate set of goals for my evaluation, I need to do that soon.
Yeah.
So that piece of this is a little bit urgent. Also, if we're going to plan goals and have the conversation about those ahead of planning for next school year, we're already working on a special schedule. We're already working on a PD plan. So
I guess that's where what I'm not fully understanding is, are we skipping? Like, what are we doing in November 2026?
The goals that I submitted for today.
Right up here. Okay. So
that I ran through those first two slides.
Okay. So I'm thinking that we should go back to those and the subcommittee should discuss those, because I think that's what we actually need to bring to the full committee next Thursday. Yeah, we're in a tricky position with not being able to have a first read, but
well, and I think, can you not do a first read and then after the election do a second because you have different members?
We could do that. Because technically we're only we'll only have one change, and even if we had 3 writing campaigns that overcame the incumbents, you still have a continuing committee with responsibilities. I mean, we do budget stuff on either side of the election. Um, uh, but just because we reorganize different chair, different committee setup, uh, we can't really bind the. What we'll really have to worry about is binding a subcommittee that would be substantively different to a decision we're making before the switch.
Yeah, the goals aren't required to have a first and second read. That's just been our tradition.
Mhm.
Okay, so we do have time. So let's take a look at these and see if we can get to a place where we can bring these to the committee next week. As recommended superintendent goals that we would evaluate you on in November 2026.
Yep, and these are the goals we would be reporting out on in the outcomes report.
Meanwhile, the district goals that you'll develop this spring will become your 27.
You'd evaluate me on them in 27,
Okay,
in probably November, after the outcomes report in October. So you'd get the report out in October, not November. You do the evaluation in November.
Yeah.
You'd get a mid-year check in February.
all right. So do you want to, I mean, I know you read them. Do you want to say any more about them?
I mean, so if you look at the report out, it's this first one around MTSS. I chose this one of the three because frankly, that's the one I'm working most directly on, because Dr. Ford Walker and I have done the professional development, worked over the summer on that DCAP MTSS plan. And that has been a major effort to sort of get that shared language out to everybody. In goal 2, I chose this one because we're headed into collective bargaining next year. We have a new role in my office. The executive manager who's running professional development for Unit C, we had bargained with Unit D the shadowing, and I've been monitoring that with the principals. So this was a little closer to some of the work that I'm explicitly focusing on, which is not to say the other action's not just as important. Then this one has been a major effort, particularly in the budget build for FY27, which is why I included this for operations around some of the collaboration on the floor. And the sort of consolidation of roles is also something I'm thinking a lot about now that we have the reductions figured out, because it's going to impact some of these workflows. So that's where some of my attention's been. And for the last one, I chose this one, I think, because there's interest from the town to talk about these after-school programs. And I've heard questions about whether we should do an RFP. I've heard questions about whether we should have ASP be in all the schools. We've been working on how we do the fee assessment as a % of revenue for ACE and ASP. So whether we do it the same way for all the other programs is worth a discussion. This is going to be taking some of my attention, which is why I chose that one. So that's the logic. I literally just from each one picked the one that is in front of my face right now in the work that we're working on as we plan for 27. So that's why. And then for each one in the report online, there is a current status. And then we shared what we've done and what our next steps are for each one. So you have that.
Is there feedback on, I guess, the content of the goals, or do you feel, I know I'm sort of feeling like this is a 6-month cycle now, and so I personally am happy to accept these as a way to move through sort of our obligations in terms of evaluation, and then have a more robust process and set of goals and feedback by whoever is on CIAA and then the full committee for the full 26-27 year with this sort of newly proposed cycle, but that's me, so.
Yeah, my only comment is what are the outcome measures?
Yeah.
So I don't know what we've done in the past. I'm forgetting, but I thought for at least some of them we had outcome measures.
So there's a document in the materials I sent along. Hold up. That is the same one you've always received.
Mhm.
That has each of these goals and the outcomes and evidence of progress. One of the things that we did last year was instead of just outcomes based on feedback from the committee, I added evidence of progress just because there's evidence that we're working on something that's not captured in the data yet.
Mhm.
So for each of these, yeah, we had thought about that when we built the district goals. So these have been vetted because there are district goals right now. We've had some discussion about them. We don't always say precisely what the measurement will be, but in some of the goals we do that. So I grabbed those where they existed and then added the description of what this would include or involve or has involved for each one. I can talk through it because I know that folks didn't have a chance to review.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think some of them are like hard to measure, like,
Mhm.
like how do we
Yeah.
measure an aligned understanding of MTSS?
Right.
Like what, yeah.
You don't, I mean, like you can assess, I suppose, based on how, like the artifacts you're getting from SST processes, but it's not direct. For the student learning goal, the assessment, the outcome is always the kids. The outcomes, like are gaps closing or not. The evidence of progress here would be artifacts from professional development, educator feedback from the sessions that Mona and I have done. Like for aligned understanding, the evidence of that comes out in conversations, it comes out in observations, it is in the artifacts from SST, like how the agendas are built, that there's some coherence there. So we would gather artifacts that would show some of that understanding. For this one, that is focused on the terms of bargaining agreements and more supportive onboarding and ongoing professional learning across different roles. The outcomes would be the surveys we do around professional development have not had great scores. We know that needs to improve. We'd look across sort of staff roles to see that that had improved. Improve staff morale. We can look at attendance rates for that. We can look at climate surveys for that. And staff retention. Evidence of progress here would be professional learning plans, agendas for some of the meetings that have happened that are new, onboarding plans for new administrators, which we've started generating whenever somebody new comes on board. We have a full sort of, here's what you need to review, here are the 4 documents, here's aspects of your role that you should know about. So we would submit that as evidence. For this one, on central office workflows, hopefully people feel good about the work if they know where things are going. So morale is there too. Financial sustainability is like, I do feel like I can think of examples of ways to show this. I'd have to think about it a little bit more. Like this part of the process, when I am developing the examples for the evaluation, it like takes a lot of time. So I would think about all of these a little more. These don't have to be locked in as far as I'm concerned, in other words. We would have, despite reductions, we would be able to keep functioning the way we're functioning, frankly. That's going to be evidence that we've done okay with our workflows if we can have fewer people and still be operating smoothly. And then I'd really like to see, I need to think about what evidence of this looks like, but I'd like to see a lot more sort of cross skill development between offices on central office work as evidence of this, which we're starting to see, like teams meet across offices to work on something together, which didn't used to happen. So that's some evidence that this is improving. And then for the fourth one, this one's kind of a difficult one to measure, but obviously more families able to access on-site after school guidelines that articulate how we use enterprise accounts and collaborate with these sort of self-sustaining funds, the folks on them, because that has been different across the different groups. So ACE's approach to, a good example of this is ACE's approach to scholarships was different than AASP's. And so we tried to align those protocols. But that's the only example of that we've done. And then we've gotten a lot of questions about how these enterprise accounts operate, what the balance should be. And as Chris articulated with Finance Committee last night, that's something we want to work on, like articulating what an appropriate sustainable balance is and where there are opportunities for us to like work with ACE to run some programming that's beneficial to the kids and to ACE and still be appropriate within the charter of ACE is something we'd like to work on. So having those guidelines established would be evidence of that. And then the approach we've taken to rental agreements in the past has been like room by room by room, like we've used the rental rates to calculate essentially what a program should pay. We'd like to do this as % of revenue, which I talked about last spring for this next round of contracts with the after schools. But that means we have to redo those agreements with them and make sure that it doesn't financially like mean they can't operate essentially. And so we need to explore that and take a look at what we would then be charging, and it would be proactive analysis for next year. So
right, so that this is
we
the
haven't
one
had time to do
I
this
have
this
a
year.
question, like, do you think with this one that you are going to have accomplished
we will have
goal
parts of this
by
done.
November?
We will have parts of this done, absolutely, by the end of this school year. We've already done a couple of pieces of it, some of the analysis behind, how to do the as a % of revenue. And Chris is working on that with ACE right now. And he's then gonna try to apply that logic to some of the other programs. So we'll have part of it done, but this one is likely to stick because it'll have a next steps to it because we won't be all the way through it. One of the things I've been trying to think through is, does it make sense for us to do a full RFP and have people bid for our after school programs? Or does it make more sense for us to fully in-house this under AASP's umbrella? Or does it make more sense to us for us to work with the town and the rec department who runs programming similar to this and for them to bid on it? All of those are possibilities that people have talked to me about, but I've not had any space to sit with them and work on, and I'm hoping to do some of that this spring and come up with a coherent plan for it. I worry about it
I think
because
that's a very,
it's a huge project,
big,
and I worry about it for that reason.
Big community conversation.
But I've also heard from the committee and from the community that, I mean, we have more kids, we have a far larger proportion of our elementary school kids in after school programming, and it is not still meeting expectations apparently. So if it is the case that in fact we are getting closer to meeting expectations on this, then I don't have to pursue that for right now. But if what I'm hearing is we're still not hitting the mark with this, then overhaul is the only answer. And so we should explore an overhaul. And it has an impact on the health of the rentals fund. I think we have been undercharging for rent, given the expenses that we're incurring. I don't think that those expenses, like that, if we increase the rent, I don't think that has to necessarily be passed to families, but I also want to make sure it doesn't get passed to families if we charge more for facilities usage. So there's a deep dive for ASP into the sustainability of the way they are costing tuition and pay and supplies for rent. That's like a full audit of their finances. Do I think we will accomplish all that in 1 year? No. But if there's appetite for it, that's why I picked this one. Then we should explore it.
There's appetite for it, but I think we're also dancing in a third rail, so we have to be very,
Yeah.
yeah. very delicate as to what we're doing and how we're moving forward on this.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I think it's going to be a multi-stage, multi-year process.
I agree. And if you read the language of this,
Hmm.
it's not saying everything I just said.
Hmm.
It's only saying a piece of that.
Yeah.
It's only saying, look at the financial models,
Hmm.
revise the rental formulas, establish expectations around what we're charging families
Hmm.
with the programs we have in place now. That's this year's work.
Yeah.
And then, but further assessment would sort of depend on where we landed with some of that work. And then we build another goal off of that. I think the town might like if we moved a little faster on this. I recognize what Mr. Schlickman just said, that this is sensitive. This is a big deal. It's not something we can just do.
Mm.
And it's not fair to these programs to do either. So there's no change next year. These same programs will be in place.
Hmm.
I would like, and I have prepped them for some expectations around charging models, like how we charge families, expectations around how we prioritize like a split up week versus a full week. And expectations around how we do the rental agreement. So they know that those changes are.
So we could be setting universal standards for programs across the district, and allowing individual contractors to come in and do that work, providing they're meeting the standards that we're setting.
Right. And we don't right now have policies that say, here's how we'll charge these programs. We could.
Hmm.
We don't have guidelines that, have been set and reassessed recently around how we're going to go about calculating their usage of the building, their, usage of electricity, and then how we're going to then charge them. So I think that's worth looking at again. And so one of the challenges I feel like we've run into in this subcommittee 2 weeks in a row now is that we're sometimes giving you the long trajectory of work that's in our minds but you're expecting like the right now slice, or the way we say it makes it feel like we're saying we're going to do all that right now. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm clear on that. But one of the things I remember is when we started to ask for financial statements from the private providers for the after-school programs, that met with a lot of resistance. And so we need to be both thoughtful and systemic in terms of how we're doing this.
Is Len still there? Does he have
He's there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, this is a good goal.
Mhm.
I think it's a multi-year goal. I
Mhm.
might frame it as, rather than focusing on the rental agreements as an outcome, as a plan to tackle this issue, right? We've had a lot of talk for years about things that we have to do to make progress, and nobody's been assigned to do any of those things. So
Mhm.
I think we need that plan written down, right? We need to get data. We need to get information about what what plans are charging, why they can't expand capacity, all that, collect all that information,
Mhm.
and then have some sort of task force or something look at it and see how we can both improve the
Mhm.
programming, make it more
Mhm.
standardized,
Mhm.
and also meet the needs better.
Mhm. I agree with Lon.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
Mhm.
So you're right. This hasn't gotten assigned anywhere. I don't know where to sign it now.
And certainly having Chris on board, and he seems to be really
I can assign
capable
it to Chris.
of playing in this domain, and bringing a fresh set of eyes into all this. I think that we've got an opportunity.
Well, it is, I mean, the assigning it is assigning it to someone who can bring us the
Mhm,
The
I'm
cur-
just,
the-
yeah,
sort of the current data, right?
yeah,
So that,
like where I would have assigned this. That role doesn't exist anymore, so that's what I'm struggling with. Okay,
this is operations, is there one more?
this is also for this school year, so whatever I put in here as an outcome, like we have to do it now.
By October?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, by the end of the school year, because these are the goals
Okay,
for the
that
school
we
year.
report back.
We get
We're
the
evaluating.
outcomes for in October, so. You know, I need it to be doable, sort of.
Mhm.
It's okay if it's a little ambitious.
I'm sorry, the title here is 26-27 superintendent goals, so I'm a little bit confused.
It should say 2026. These are the ones you would evaluate me on. I shouldn't make it school year goals. These are the ones
Okay.
you would evaluate me on in 2026. And I got that kind of confused today multiple times, so. But it's the 25-26 district goals that you would evaluate me on after we get outcomes for 2026, in 2026.
So it's really goals that we should have established in January after we finished, and
But yeah, we were,
a lot of things again.
what I have done in the past is I have developed goals based on the year we're in. So you still like, this is actually not that different from what we've done.
Right.
Because what I would do is I would take the goals from the year we're in the middle of, develop goals for the evaluation from those, and then 6 months later,
Right.
well, sort of a year later,
Well,
you
so
end up
9
evaluating
months,
me
essentially.
on them.
Mhm.
But we're halfway through the year at the time we do the goals. What I like about this is that we've got one set of goals for the whole school year. I'm
Yeah, that's-
evaluated on them too.
That's for 26-27, but we have to do something basically for 25-26.
That's this.
Right.
Yep.
So I think that's where that said 26-27, which is what
It did,
Len's
yes,
comment. Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
this
so I
is
think
the-
drawing it back to just making a plan is all we
Yeah.
need by the end of the summer. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is standard 3 of family and community engagement. I just wanna, I wanna make sure we've had.
the focus
time.
indicators come from 3 and 4, yes.
Okay.
This
Okay,
is one of the district goals.
improvement, okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the DESI form.
Yeah. So the DESI form doesn't say for the superintendent evaluation to line them up on each of the standards. It kind of does
Right.
anyway, like,
District improvement goal, yes, no, yeah, okay. Why the form is confusing.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the last thing that you have.
yes.
Okay. Okay, so Paul and Len, do you feel like this is something that we can bring to the full committee next week to recommend as essentially the superintendent's goals for the 25-26 school year? Does someone
Yeah.
want?
yes,
to-
I do. I
a
so
motion
move.
to-
I'll second that.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Len,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so we will recommend these to the full committee.
Okay, should I
26.
plan to present and explain maybe slower that cycle shift to everybody? Since, or, do y'all
Um,
wanna discuss that more or not?
I think,
I'd say, I would say that a in-depth explanation of the cycle shift isn't necessary, but just as making sure that everybody's aware that we're talking about that and setting that up as the context for presenting the goals we're going to be evaluating you by in November. Because this
Yeah.
part really isn't changing.
Mm-mm.
no, yes, this part is the same, we're just behind.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're
schedule.
behind. It's just the district goals that are on a slightly different, like earlier, but bumped up schedule.
Yeah.
And I think that will all have to come to the CIAA subcommittee
It will
after
election.
March
Mhm.
28th and go through an iteration and be brought as a recommendation alongside superintendent goals
Hmm.
for
For the,
25-20.
yeah,
for 26, 27 with the
Yeah.
report in November 27. Yeah.
It's also possible that we could establish the district goals. We could do the outcomes report, and then you guys, after we do the outcomes report and the evaluation, could say of the district goals, which ones would you like to evaluate on in a year?
Mhm.
So like that way you've gotten into the year, you've heard the outcomes.
Mhm.
You can pick from the action steps that are on the district goals that are already approved, which ones you want to evaluate me on, which might give the committee a little more sort of, it's a more of a check-in around the goals you're evaluating me on. And an opportunity to relook at them and say, okay, of these action steps, this is the one we want to make sure gets done and that you're monitoring. So that's the one we're going to evaluate you on, because that's what that does. It heightens the sort of attention to for me directly.
I think that piece of it, this subcommittee made up of whoever it is made up of, will have to sort of continue that conversation and make some decisions to recommend to the full committee.
Okay.
But for next week, we will recommend these goals, and we will share an update about making the evaluation tool easier to fill in by having it put on a form, yes, that members can use to fill in it.
Sounds good.
Does that seem right to both of you?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to accomplish in our last few minutes as a subcommittee? All right.
Nope.
Liz, Liz Exton, you'll have your commentary on that GBEDBXQ whatever.
Well,
policy.
I have opened a can of worms with that, Mr. Selectman.
Or do you want us to just sort of not do, we could either take no action on it or come up with something to do.
I'll send you.
Make a decision between now and next week.
Okay.
Because we just need to know what to do with that. We can refer back.
Can we table, is it something we can, okay, refer back or take, like,
We can
yeah,
refer back to the new subcommittee.
okay,
Would be the way to get rid of it.
okay. I
Okay.
will potentially make that motion next week. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved. Oh, second.
Roll call vote, Ben,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and I vote yes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Look at that,
you.
right at
Thank you very
4:30.
much.